So we started our brown bag testing journey yesterday, and a couple of questions came up, and since I was working on this anyway this morning, I thought I'd try to clear up a few things, make a few points, add some additional information to the resources, and show some samples from our actual code base. So the question I'd like to address is, what are those different types of tests? I was rather surprised when our unit testing series went first off into feature testing, but that's okay. All are useful, and I think we need to develop out suites of all the different types of tests for various reasons. But I'm using Codeception these days, and it's working very well for me. Codeception divides things up into different types of tests, which you can see in the test directory after you run Codeception bootstrap, I believe the actual command is. But anyway, once you bootstrap Codeception, you'll get a unit folder, a functional folder, and an acceptance folder. API can be generated separately, and I'll go into that maybe at some other point. But for me, these have become pretty much the 4 different types of tests. And here's how I differentiate them in my mind. So a unit test basically needs nothing but assertions. And this is the configuration file for the unit tests in Codeception, by the way. It needs nothing for assertions except the thing being tested and the ability, PHP unit, to make such assertions. And if we look at the test I'm working with right now, and I suppose this is a pretty good example. So I'm looking to test the patient ed events repo, and the first thing I need to make sure is that it actually has the array of patient education events that I'm expecting. So this is a very simple test. There's nothing to it. Really, in some ways, there's no reason to expect that it would fail. But as long as the test is here in the suite and the test is run later, if this array is changed, this test will fail. And we know that either the test needs to be updated or the change needs to be reversed if it wasn't intentional. But the important part here is that the only thing I'm bringing in is the class that I'm testing, and that exists here. And I'm looking to see that when the construction runs, the array of trackables is set, and then if I get array of trackables, I'm going to assert that that array of trackables I received is equal to my expectation. Notice there's nothing that involves the inversion of control container for Laravel. There's nothing that does DB. This particular section of this particular class is pure PHP and has nothing whatsoever to do with the environment that it's sitting in. Now let's contrast that with the, let's call it the top level of testing. It's basically end-to-end testing of acceptance. I have no acceptance tests in this particular repo, but an acceptance test, well, let's get an example. So here is the accounts repo for Seric, and in here I have a login test that is an acceptance test, and it is a full acceptance test. So if we look at the configuration for acceptance tests in Codeception, you'll see that there are other requirements here. Where the unit tests only require the asserts module, my acceptance test requires the Webdriver module. And that means a lot. That basically means that I'm going to fire up an instance of Selenium. I'm going to actually open up a browser and control it remotely with my tests, and I'm clicking things and I'm testing that what I expect to have happen in the browser actually happens. So this goes far beyond simply needing the framework to be working, To make this work, you have to have a Selenium server set up, and you actually have to have the page running on some sort of a web server, either your local WAMP, or even PHP's internal web server, depending on how you've got it configured.